even though I was so tired and I feel heavy and sad and all of those things, I was having the time of my life. I was so happy just because of the opportunity. I never thought I was going to have the chance to play this part. It was not supposed to happen. I'm Cuban. you know. Um,
My name's Joe Neumaier. I am the film critic for WOR Radio, and let's have a huge round of applause, please, for Blonde. And it is my great honor to welcome the film star, Ana de Armas. Hi, Ana. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on the
sorry
film.
for being late.
Oh, no, we were just talking about the traffic, New York traffic, doing what it does. In seeing this film again, Ana, your performance is so incredible in it, and there are two levels of exhilaration and discovery, I think, going on in your performance. One is you in the role, kind of discovering something about this icon that we've all known for so long, and it's fictionalized but intuitive. But the other is that we're sort of having a sense of discovery watching you on screen and watching this amazing performance. Tell us about your relationship with Marilyn Monroe kind of prior to taking the role, what you knew about her and what you learned.
Well, what I knew about Marilyn was very basic, I would say. I just knew the movie star, I knew her on screen. I thought she was a very good actress, very funny, very charming. And that was pretty much it. So for me, the entire, engaging with the project and meeting Andrew and everything we did from, the moment I got cast was a huge learning process for me. The research was very, very extensive. Not only learning Andrew, everything that Andrew had, done for 11 years before we met, but also like on my own. And I knew I had a lot of work to do. It was very specific and very detailed, and I wanted to honor that character that Marilyn Monroe was, her career and her legacy and her physicality and looks and all of that. And I also, I thought that only focusing on that or imitating that was going to be very limiting for me. So, the movie is about Norma Jean, the woman who played that part. So it was a lot of, investigation about who Norma was. Andrew created this photographic Bible with over 700 pictures of her. At that moment in time, Marilyn was probably the most photographed person in the world. So you can find her pretty much doing anything in pictures. And you could see the movie in these 700 pictures all the way through, whether it was a specific photograph that we were recreating or just a sentiment, like a feeling in her face that you could clearly see, or this is kind of like the mood or the essence that we're going for. So it was a lot of observation work, watching her films, especially the ones that we recreate, and just always trying to see Norma Jean underneath all that makeup and performance.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment, too, because that's an extraordinary part of the film is the makeup and costuming and everything. Obviously, writer-director Andrew Dominic, as you said, had been working on it for about 11 years. The best-selling book is from 2000 by Joyce Carol Oates. Since we have a room full of actors here, I'm just kind of curious about the process, some of those early conversations with Andrew that you guys had, and he had thought of you for the role early on after seeing you in Knock Knock, I believe he had said. And I'm just curious about some of those conversations because as you said, it is about Norma Jean. It's about the woman inside of this persona, and the glimpses we see of her trying to push out in some ways out of the cage of being an icon. What was some of those conversations like with Andrew early on?
Well, I think the conversations we went scene by scene. Like Andrew's very perfectionist and very, he goes to the minutia of everything, which is good. And I like that. I'm the same. The conversations were more about, again, the same thing, trying to get to the bottom of the humanizing this woman that had been pretty much put in a position of with no not too many options. She for so long she tried so hard to be considered a good actress, to be respected as an intellectual, as an actor. She didn't really I think at the beginning she was very ambitious and she wanted that, and she played a part into creating this role, and at some point that just got out of her control, and the studios and the industry took over. And Marilyn for her was kind of like her armor and a prison at the same time. She learned how to use that to survive. And she knew that even though there was kind of like this tiredness and exhaustion and just she felt trapped in it, she also knew that she needed her to continue and to keep going. So yeah, the conversations were about that, just trying to understand her trauma, her pain, the guilt that she carried, throughout her entire life, and how do you get out of situations, the best way you can. And there was something very interesting that I think that did it for me somehow. Andrew told me that I couldn't express any anger or rage. That she didn't have that in her survival kit. She had no boundaries. She just gave and gave and gave, and people took and took and took, and she couldn't just I just thought, like, not being able to express anger, I think that is very healthy for people to do that. Is a very it's a defense mechanism. So how do you navigate life and this situations if you can't do that? So even though it was a very sharp limitation for me in that direction, it did open up for me a whole bunch of other options emotionally. So I had to go there and explore other ways to connect with people and to find how to deal with all of it.
Yeah, that's interesting because in your performance, you mentioned you can't show anger. It sort of comes out in other ways, or it kind of gets funneled into sort of a sense of wryness, almost like a sense of detachment in some ways, a bit of a sense of humor, and a sense of looking for connection, right? I feel often in your performance, we see in your eyes that she is looking to connect with somebody, and she's not able to, and she can't express what she's feeling.
Yes, yeah. I think she was always the unwanted child, unloved, and that's what she was looking for her entire life. And you can see other characters, they're like kind of like in completely different worlds. They're not even speaking the same language. You see with every relationship, with DiMaggio, with Miller, with and it's it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And when that other persona is 50 feet tall outside of a movie theater, and the actual person that you are has to be kind of kept inside you.
Yeah, I don't think she ever. I don't think she felt like she could ever live up to Marilyn Monroe. Yeah. She saw Marilyn as a third person. She didn't understand the way other people look at her. So it was must have been really strange to just to be expected to be that and deliver that over and over and over again when you have so much, more to give and you aspire
Right.
too.
Yeah. And so much more talent and intellect and everything else. Yeah. Let's talk about the physical transformation, which we just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, which is amazing. How did you work with the hair and makeup and costume team? And I want to give them a shout out. That's Jamie Lee McIntosh, who's the hair department head, Tina Rossler Kerwin, makeup department head, and Jennifer Johnson, the costume designer, worked with yourself and Andrew Dominic to for this amazing transformation. What was that like, and what was that whole process like?
It was a lot just to find it, because then at the end of the day we didn't use any prosthetics. The only thing that we had, the wigs didn't have much hair, because the more density they look more like a doll instead of like real hair. So and the hair was so blonde that you could see my dark hair underneath. Like it looked like I had massive roots and I haven't done my hair in a long time. So we had to cover it. But also her hairline, she had like the widow's peak and all of that. So the only prosthetics that we had was in my forehead, covering my hairline, and everything else was, hundreds of lashes, basically. But even though it was, besides that, the makeup itself was very simple. We just we had to, fine tune it like in a very, subtle way. And I think they did a beautiful job. And, we went from what we call the uniform, Marilyn's uniform. And it was the basic blonde wig, still not very platinum, and very neutral makeup, and the turtleneck knit top and the little black and white pants. And that was kind of like what we thought, this is, what Norma would wear every day. And then we would just take it down very, very, very much when we need it, or dial it up like to the most Marilyn she ever is in the movie. And that was a good, every day was very challenging. We have over 100 costume changes in the movie. And every look, whether it was Norma or a very specific recreation of any film, felt like it was a huge celebration every time we got it right. And then also like, oh shit, I have to do this tomorrow again. It was a lot of pressure for them. I was in the hair and makeup chair at 4:35 a.m. every morning. There was a person just holding my head because I was asleep most of the time. So they finished my makeup at the end, my eyes, when I was waking up. Yeah. So that was a beautiful process every time. And also, we had no time for this movie. We did this in 47 days. That's 9 weeks. It's nothing. Usually in a film you do 3 scenes a day, if anything. Maybe some days it's just 1 scene you dedicate the whole day. We would do like up to 11 scenes in a day. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, right.
And some days we had to, she was very young and glowing, and the skin was, flawless. And then after lunch, the scenes were all like towards the end. And we had all the aging makeup and making her skin, more drier and things like that. And so it was a lot of, solving problems all the time, I remember towards the end, I got very sick. My kidneys were giving up. And we had 3 days to finish the movie. And they were like, okay, we can just, finish here. And when you get better, we come back and we do reshoots. And I was like, oh no, this is not happening. We're finishing this movie if it's the last thing I ever do. And I'll go to the hospital later, because it was just so much. And I think, in a way it was kind of like just ripping off the Band-Aid and just get it done. And because those 9 weeks of, I won't say being her, because, that would sound very pretentious, but feeling like that was very, very intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very heavy.
Very heavy. And obviously Andrew being such a terrific filmmaker, thinking about it for 11 years, he knew exactly how to get through those 47 days, which is I think part of the benefit of having thought about it
He
for 11
knew,
years.
and he's so crazy that he wanted to even add more things.
Right.
So, I mean, with the material that we had, I mean, we would have had a 4-hour movie.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but even though I was so tired and I feel heavy and sad and all of those things, I was having the time of my life. I was so happy just because of the opportunity. I never thought I was going to have the chance to play this part. It was not supposed to happen. I'm Cuban. But just in general, to any actor, whatever they're from, character like this, where you get to play, something like this strong, this many layers, this, something that you have to like just give so much of yourself, don't happen. These movies don't happen. We don't make cinema like this anymore. So that alone was just like, I have to do this, even if it kills me at the end, because, it just makes me very, very proud. Yeah. Just to do the work.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And such an immersive experience, too. That also is very rare, to have it really be kind of turning that viewpoint around. Marilyn Monroe was somebody that everybody looked at. This is a film that's looking at the world through her eyes and through her point of view. I want to talk to you about your process. Every actor's process, of course, is different. I know, but some people have an outside-in, process where if they find the right hat, they find the right coat, that helps them kind of figure out the character. And obviously, you and Andrew had worked on a lot. But I'm wondering if there was any element of the costume and makeup process that you maybe could have been the mold, could have been anything, where it's like once that sort of, or the shoes or something that helped you kind of figure her out, or an emotional moment at any point in filming.
I mean, I think I remember every day I had to do my lips. Nobody else did my lips. I had to do my lipstick, whatever color it was, super red or just a nude color. I did that. I wouldn't say that made me find the role,
Right.
It was just that these little things, the doing the lips or the Chanel No. 5 perfume that nobody can smell, just me. But, those these little things. I remember I had my entire trailer with pictures of her printed all over the place. And there was this very cute picture of her eating ice cream that I had next to the door, and I was just touch it and say, good morning, and just go to set. But I feel like the process itself was, I would do 2.5 hours makeup, then 20 minutes getting dressed, and another 20 minutes of vocal coaching. And even though it feels like the only thing that I was warming up was my voice, I felt like that and those entire 3.5 hours of me in the morning, it was an entire warm-up. Like, each stage of the process was very important. And Andrew would get mad at me because some days, we would take longer and they would be waiting on set, and clearly we didn't have time. But I had to go through them. And I just couldn't it wasn't a thing that, if people ask you, can you do Marilyn's voice now? I would, no, I can't. Because that was a very specific moment in time when I was just doing that. And did, everything I got was for that. And her, embodying her or feeling her and talking like her was so, linked to her emotions, that you couldn't separate one thing from the other, And it was these little things, little steps, like putting the bra on and getting that shape ready. And then there was this little elastic, basically truly like a white elastic that I would just put around my waist. And immediately everything, my body would kind of like feel like her shape. And all those steps, I don't know. And I also have my dog with me in the movie. That white dog is my dog, Elvis. That was very cute. So Sinatra gave her this dog called Mafia, obviously. And it was very crazy when we found this out, that my dog just looked like Mafia, and her name is Elvis. So it was very strange, the whole thing. And Andrew was like, "Well, clearly Elvis has to play Mafia," and that was also like very, very. And we had this kind of strange moments in the movie all the time, like in the 7-year itch when she's getting her dress, blown up. The guy doing that was the grandson of the man who did hers. Oh, wow. It's a family of unsaid effects, like all of these things that we were like, how is this happening? Like a lot of these moments we would get in the movie. So that's why I've said before, even though it's been apparently very easy for the press to take it out of context, that we felt her. And that, we shot in LA. She's everyone in LA. You go to a restaurant and literally there is a table. This is the Marilyn Monroe table because she used to sit there. The car I drove in the movie, she was her car. The house we filmed in was her home. Like the apartment with mother was her place. The orphanage, even though now it's not an orphanage, but the outside looks just like that. So we were kind of like following her. Like we were there in these places that she lived, and it felt special. That's what I meant by that. It was no ghost. It was her essence. Like we were feeling that. And I thought it was beautiful.
It absolutely is. And I want to talk about your own research process a little bit more in a moment. But since you brought it up, I want to talk about recreating some of those amazing film moments too, which is, I mean, there's something about, there's other levels to it in this movie. So you're seeing not just that great recreated moment from Some Like It Hot or from 7-Year Itch, but you're seeing a sort of, or Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and singing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. You're seeing the truth within it. But what was it like recreating those moments? Because that's a formidable task for any actor, I would imagine.
It was pretty surreal because, from the tailor recreating the exact replicas of those dresses and, being in Fox Studios where they have these massive graffitis of her in this movie, paintings of her. So the trailers were outside and you would just step outside and she was there, and then the set was in the next corner. It was just like being there was very special. And then also a lot of work, just studying the scenes over and over and over again. And Andrew and Chase, the DP, also like really nailing the shots and the colors and the takes. Like Andrew had 2 monitors, one with the real movie playing and then the shot like we were doing, us doing the movie. And my hair person Jamie was kind of like one day fixing my hair and going back and forth between set and the monitor again and again. And at some point I was like, I'm going to the monitor. I think we'll be done sooner. And I get to the monitor and I realize that she's looking at the wrong monitor trying to fix my hair, but she was looking at Marilyn. And it was like, you will never get it because you can't. That's not me. But that's how close we were from, doing the scenes. And Andrew also dressed the crew in period clothes. So in the 7-Year Itch, the guy with the mic, that's our sound guy. That's Ben. So that gave us a lot of freedom too, because Andrew wanted to also capture moments before the take or after the take was done. He would not cut, and he would just do this thing that is he would call 50-50. And at the beginning I didn't know what 50-50 was. I found out very soon that he just kept rolling. So I had to stay in it, and a lot of the moments that are in the film are just improvisations and just things that happened between the actors, and he wanted to capture that. So because the camera was in the shoulder, and would follow me wherever I would go. The crew needed to be dressed. So what I'm saying is that everyone, not just the actors, were so involved in the process and the making of it, because we couldn't afford wasting any time or cut, or even my dialect coach is dressed in like Strasbourg. I think she was wearing like to some recreation of some dialect coach that she had. So when she would come and give me notes, she could be in the scene because she was wearing the right clothes. So yeah, everyone was very in sync with what we were doing, and it was pretty awesome just to the question was about recreating the scenes,
but that's part of it, because also that immersive quality, like when we see her sort of kind of storm off the set in Some Like It Hot and kind of get mad at Billy Wilder, and there's sort of this sort of
all of that was improvised, by the way.
Wow.
When she's picking the eyes and throws it and just walks away and the doctor comes, that was not planned, that was not organized, that was just literally the studio we were shooting at. And so it was it felt like we were almost doing a play. It felt like we were, everyone was going with it. That's why I said I've never felt more free, in terms of feeling things. Because Andrew never told me, don't do that or don't go there. It was more like more. There is I think at some point Netflix will release some kind of like behind the scenes situation, and there is I believe it's the scene that I scratched my face or something like that, and I'm asking Andrew, so the next one, do it? And he goes, more. And I'm like, more? He's like, more. So it was just like very encouraging to have a director who was just unafraid of emotions, and truth, and all these, dark places and the pain that we all humans have inside. So that was really, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. And along with that idea of more is the idea of preparation and research. And there's no such thing as ever being over-prepared, I think. And
I would prepare for another 2 years if I could.
Now, look, talk about what it was like, because obviously you read things, you listened to hours and hours of audio tapes of her and everything. What was the research process like for you, Anna?
Well, the voice was one of the most scary things for me. I knew that I had huge disadvantage there. I learned English like 6.5, 7 years ago. So when I imagine, and we've been waiting for this movie to come out 3 years. So 3 years ago, it was not good. It was just not good. So I knew that I had a lot of work to do, but I wasn't afraid. I was like, it's going to happen. I can't. The thing is, what I learned is that the voice that we're familiar with is the on-screen voice, because I also did so much research, and the good thing about YouTube is that you literally can find anything, and there are so many audios of interviews with Marilyn which she's just home, maybe drinking something or whatever, and she's being herself, she's relaxed, there are no cameras, it's just and her voice is completely different. It's graspy, it's lower. She's not in this high pitch that she's all the time. She's not being childish. You can see her true laugh. And then, she used to stammer when she was younger. So she got a personal dialect coach for that. And then with the movies, she got different. In each movie, you see a film, and then 3 films later, she speaks completely different, because it would depend of who was coaching her. So I was not going to play that game. I was just not, it was not interesting. It wasn't, so for me, I just wanted to keep that quality of her voice, the breathiness and that, and at the same time, I wanted you can imitate something and have no soul, I thought it moving people, moving the audience was more important. So I tried to combine, Marilyn with something real.
Yeah, we can see that difference in your performance. Just like we can see it, when you watch Monroe films, there's a difference from when she went to New York and started studying with Lee Strasberg. You can feel that the difference in her on screen, and we see that in your performance as well. Which also brings us to your amazing co-stars and your work with them. Let's have a round of applause, please, for Bobby Cannavale and Adrian Brody amongst the Julianne Nicholson, the incredible cast. Let's kind of talk about working with each of them in those scenes. First with Bobby, and then with Adrian. Bobby playing the ex-athlete, and sort of what Marilyn is sort of looking for in that very brief marriage that she has with that character, and then subsequently with Adrian as the playwright, and what her goals are and what her needs are at that point.
Yeah, well, this is we were going so fast, and I have so many husbands and in the movie that literally felt like every day someone new was on set, and I was like, okay. But Bobby and Adrian, I mean, I was blown away by, just being on set with them, and Julianne, and Xavier and Evan, and I mean, everybody was great. But Bobby, that relationship is just so unfortunate because they really, you can tell that that's not going anywhere. I think it was just 9 months. Yeah. Of relationship. So getting to know each other, getting married, and then getting divorced in 9 months, that was a lot to, a lot went down in 9 months. And, I just feel like, again, she just wanted to feel protected and taken care of and loved. And that was just not, yeah.
And that famous.
And Bobby is just so macho and so masculine, and so it was. I think he was amazing as Joe. It was a great chemistry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Fame is sort of the third person in that marriage in some ways, or the thing that kind of brings them together.
Yes.
And then with Adrian as the playwright, there's what I see in your performance is a sense of Norma Jean she thinks she finds somebody who sees her for who she really is, and then she realizes that there's still levels that she has to get through to him, but it's not what she wanted, right?
Yeah, I feel like, she admired him so much. She really looked up to him, and there was something about that, someone so, again, an intellectual, so smart, a writer, that would give her confidence, and maybe she felt like, oh, if I'm with him and people like him, then they will like me too. Like, there's a reason why he's with me, But yeah, again, I think it's one of the that did work for a while, but then, again, there was the massive disconnection there, and which is a shame because Adrian is so wonderful, and
film, and the sense of her kind of always grappling with trauma is what we see in your performance also, that it's always there. It's set up so beautifully early on in the film, and we see it echoing in your performance, the sense that trauma is constantly this gate that she has to kind of crash through.
Yeah, she really wants to fix mother. The absent father figure, is a problem, but I feel like mother is the real problem, and what she feels like she has to fix. And the whole idea is that, she thought, if I can find my dad and he comes back, then my mom is going to be okay. But because I can't find him, if I'm very, very famous, he can find me. So, but really was the mother that you can see that she's trying to build, to fix that, to build that relationship. And it is obviously she's pretty much no reaction there. There's nothing. There's no feedback. They don't recognize each other. They don't, Yeah.
Yeah, and then the aspect of the performance as well, and of her life is that is also so haunting, is obviously the drug that you said to go that happens, and the way the studio sort of, how that all sort of encouraged, and it's beautifully hinted at in the film, but it's just a sort of part and parcel of the last 4 years of her life, and sort of finding no structure except for kind of being lost in some ways, isn't she? That she's sort of trying to find herself, and that's the consistency of those last years in many ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, right. What was it like trying to find that level as a performer? Because that you don't want to ever lose that connection with the audience, but you also sort of have to be sort of in some ways kind of in your own world in some ways when you're playing that aspect of a character, right? Yeah.
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 I mean, you're saying it all.
No,
Yeah.
Well, what would you like people to take away from the film on it to wrap up? Because there's so much in there, and there's so much heartbreak, and there's so much trauma, but there's also so much beauty in a lot of ways. What would you like people to take away from the film?
I mean, I feel like it must be it is very difficult to be idolized by people and to be an icon for people, because it does put you under a very specific gaze, and you're supposed to, do this for them, and for the most part, in my experience, is a very it's not a very complete, picture of who you are. It's a very one-sided, like one point of view that, for obvious reasons, people want to keep that way. I feel like that's very unfair. And even though this movie is fictional and is based on a fictional novel, there are things that are true. Like, there are events that obviously happened, but the emotional truth of that is there. And I feel like it does give you a more dimensional idea of who she was, a more complete as sense of a real person, struggling with this, and I feel it's kind of like it needs that. It needs a more just 360, and it's all the colors.
Yeah.
We can't just put this person in just one box and keep it there. We need to be more understanding of and forgiving and supportive and of whoever it is in a position like this. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like more empathetic with.
Yeah. The film is haunting and magnetic and is anchored by your amazing performance and so thought-provoking. Ladies and gentlemen, on into Armas, and the film is Blonde. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you.